Hey, and welcome to Sunday night, and thanks for being with me here on the channel for our live chat. I know in parts of North America it is really cold. It's been a beautiful day here on the west coast of Canada. Temperature of 10 degrees Celsius and sunny, and I know in the east it's with the wind chill, minus 30 degrees. That is way too cold. Now, speaking of cold, I have the Toyo ski and snowboard giveaway, and you know what? I'm going to do it today. So here are the skis and the snowboard from Toyo Tires, made by Elan, and I'm giving these away today because what I was initially going to do is wait until next week, but I just looked at my calendar and I realized that I'm going to be in Spain with Porsche for the new 911. It's called the 992, so I'm excited to be driving that. Just a week away. I'll actually be on my way back by then. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. Yeah, so I come home from Spain. I'm home for 2 nights, and then I fly back to Quebec, just outside of Montreal, a place called Macaglis, for they have their winter driving program, and I'm going to get a chance to drive the Cayenne Turbo and the Cayenne S in real Canadian winter conditions. So that's coming up. Also, I'd love for you to follow along on Instagram. So search me on Instagram. It's Motormouth_auto. And Facebook is turning into a nice little spot for people to come on board and view their opinions. I put a lot of news stories on, you know, what recalls, any cars, sales, stories about Tesla seems to get a lot of response. So I put those on Facebook. So just search up Motormouth on Facebook and like the page, and you can join in on the conversation. There seems to be a real healthy community there. What cars are coming up? So we have the RDX coming up, the A-Spec. I'll be driving that. I did a review with my wife of the Mazda CX-5. People enjoyed having her back on, so Andrea will be back on that RDX, so she's the perfect person to do that. Also keep an eye out for the GMC Sierra video that's going to come out this week. I'm going to have a Volvo S60 review coming out, and also sometime in February, I heard a rumor that the Honda Passport Ride and Drive will be held. So that's the new SUV from Honda that's between the CR-V and the, what's the other one called? Oh, come on, I can't remember. Anyway, the Pilot, duh. So there you go. All right, let's get into the question and answers. Charlottetown Spud, nice to have you back. Charlottetown Spud from PEI. I'm looking at the 0 to 60 times and quarter mile times of the 2019 GTI and the Veloster N. And they're very similar despite the GTI having less power. Having driven both of these, does one feel quicker to you? Well, sometimes speed is a sensation that you get not by really how fast you're going, but how the car translates the road into the seat of your pants and into the steering wheel. And I would say that the Veloster N, when they have the N button there, it makes everything much stiffer. The adaptive suspension is really quite stiff. The steering ratio is tightened up, and it definitely feels more connected to the road, which gives you the sensation of driving faster. That's good information. I didn't know that. The 0 to 60 times are very, very close. Both are excellent cars, but the GTI has a more polished, everyday, almost luxury Audi-like feel to it. I call it Audi Light. So yeah, that's the difference. The Veloster N is definitely a raw execution of a hot hatchback for sure. So sometimes it's just in the perception of speed, but they're both great cars. Fatir says, oh, by the way, with the ski and the snowboard, I'll do that towards the end of the live chat here today. Hey, Zach, Toyota announced the hybrid RAV4 models will be $1,400 more than the gasoline versions. At $1,400, it's no brainer to get the hybrid. I keep my cars 200,000 kilometers. Well, there you go. And when we went on the launch of the RAV4, they made it quite clear that the gap between the gas and the hybrid would shrink to the point where a lot of people would walk into the dealer and go, there's the gas, there's the hybrid. You know, I'm paying for this car over, what, 3, 4, 5 years. It makes no difference in my monthly payments, but I'm saving money on fuel every single day. And it's interesting. I was in the Detroit, at the Detroit show, the North American Auto Show with Toyota, and we had a roundtable discussion. So we had Vice President of Toyota Canada there. We had Larry Hutchinson, the President of Toyota Canada. So I'm sitting next to these people, and we get great access for several hours over a great meal and some nice wine talking about the auto industry. And Toyota has an interesting view on reducing carbon emissions, and they believe, and when they walk you through it and explain it, it makes a lot of sense. Instead of having just 1 or 2% of people driving cars with zero tailpipe emissions, electric cars, wouldn't it be better if we got the majority of people that want to drive their car, not spend all of that money to get an electric car, reducing their carbon footprint? So if you could get all of the mass-produced vehicles on the road putting out 20, 30% less greenhouse gas emissions because they're hybrid, you don't have to plug them in, then that is going to have a much bigger impact on the environment than 1 or 2% of people having zero tailpipe emissions. So that's their philosophy. Excuse me. Then you add on the layer of you could plug it in and get, say, 50 or 80 kilometers of pure electric battery power by only making the battery slightly larger. So this is all stuff that's going to come. So I agree with you. And they want to double their hybrid sales. They want to go from 10% hybrid in the RAV4 to 20%. I think they might go higher than that. Here's a question about another hybrid. Hey, Zach, looking at buying a 2012 Lexus CT200H. What are your thoughts? A good car and worth $15,000. This is basically a fancy Prius. Okay, so basically you take the Prius and you turn it into a Lexus, and that's basically what you're getting. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I would suggest you also look at the Prius and see for yourself if it's worth it to pay a premium, if there is a premium, to get the Lexus over the Prius. But that's really what you're driving. So there's nothing wrong with it. Prius runs and runs forever, and that will as well. Toyota seems to be one of the only manufacturers not switching to smaller displacement engines with turbocharging and supercharging. Do you think Toyota will eventually make their entire lineup hybrid? Toyota has been on record as saying they will have hybrids throughout their entire range of vehicles, and in not that too distant a future, and it's going to make a big impact. So now here, for example, in Canada, Toyota is the #3 automaker. Ford, General Motors, and Toyota now, FCA's fallen down into 4th place. So you get a major player like that implementing more hybrids. You know, they have some great opportunities to make like a Toyota Sienna minivan a hybrid. They could do hybrids. They're doing hybrid now, and the new Corolla is going to be a hybrid. So you're going to see it more and more. Is the Ranger overpriced or fairly priced? I'm not totally up to speed on the price of the Ranger. It's starting to arrive. Was at a hockey game. A buddy of mine who lives here in Vancouver took me to the Vancouver-Edmonton game. That's why I still have a bottle of water from the game. I did have beer though too. One of his guests also was a Ford dealer, and I asked him, I said, are you getting the Rangers? He says they're just starting to arrive at dealerships now, and they think it's going to be a big seller, and I do too. Just look at, what's so crazy about the auto industry is a few years ago, everybody ran away from mid-size pickup trucks. The only 2 trucks were left were Tacoma and Frontier from Nissan, and Nissan didn't really sell any of those. They had a golden opportunity with that truck to update it, come with something new, and they still haven't done anything with it. So Tacoma obviously has been updated. Now they're all rushing back in. You have the GM mid-size trucks, you have the Ford Ranger, and then you've got the Gladiator coming back, which is the coolest of the bunch. But the pricing, I don't know. I am going to get a chance to drive it. I think it's going to be arriving here within the next few weeks, and I'll book it in as soon as I can to give you a review. All right. I knew it was coming. Mo says, your thoughts on the new Supra. So there is Mr. Toyota himself, Akio Toyoda, introduced the new Supra at the North American International Auto Show. And he's a really funny, I don't know if it's he's funny or his speechwriter's quite funny. He sort of takes the mickey out of himself and has a lot of fun. Now, at the very end, he stands in front of the car and he goes, Supra is a back. And yes and no. You know what? There's a lot of people in the comments. They put out a sort of a highlight of the North American International Auto Show, and everybody was just crapping on Supra. It's not a Supra. It's not a Toyota. It's a BMW Z or Z4 rebadged. It's basically a BMW coupe. And you know what? When you look inside, everything on the inside, the screens, the switch gear, everything, the iPad, the iDrive controller, everything, it's all BMW. There's a Toyota emblem on the steering wheel, but they ran away and tuned it themselves, and BMW went out and tuned their Z4. So, you know what? What do we have to do? We have to drive it to find out. Now, it's not a real Supra because it's a 2-seater, and the Supra was always a 2+2. And yeah, it's a great looking car. It certainly had a lot of buzz. When you see it in person, it's a funky looking, fun little car. Now, BMW used to have the coupe in the Z4, Z4 range. They had it in the Z3 as well. You know, really funky looking thing. So that's basically what we're getting. So the engine under the hood is one of the best in the market. That BMW inline six-cylinder is perfect. So yeah, let's wait until we get a chance to drive it. And it's going to be here before summer. They said it'll be here before summer. They have to capitalize on that summer market. By the way, I found out for the Canadian market, it's going to be about 1,000 cars initially for the first year. I'm looking at buying a Lexus UX, but it seems that only the hybrid will be available with all-wheel drive. I don't know exactly on that. I saw it at the Detroit show. It's the first time I'd seen it. And it's a great looking little utility. It's based on the same platform as the CHR, but it looks quite low to the ground and sporty looking. I think it's gonna sell incredibly well. And they said to me that yes, their volume they think is going to be the all-wheel drive model. Is it worth it to use a service like CarCost when buying a new car that may have lower production like the Supra? Or can you pretty much expect to have to pay MSRP? Yeah, well, here's the thing. CarCost Canada, and there's both up there now, is a service. By the way, the first search is free. Doesn't cost you anything. And I think you can do like 5 searches for a very small amount, under $50. So you can search that out. When you do have a low production model car, it is going to absolutely, like there are not going to be any rebates on this car. So yes, you can look up, do your free search with the first search for free, and you'll probably see there won't be any direct manufacturer rebates. If, however, the vehicle doesn't sell well, then they'll start to put incentives on it. But here's the thing. For example, I was at this hockey game with this friend who runs a Ford dealer. He's the principal of the Ford dealer. And I asked him, you know, will you get a price premium over the new GT500 or when the GT350 came? Were you charging a lot more over retail? And he said, yeah, we get maybe a couple of thousand. Now, there were stories of dealers charging 20 and 30,000. He says, no, we don't do that. But you know, some dealers might actually start to charge more because it's a limited production car. I think you're best to actually, if you want the car, is to order it from the dealer and then pay the MSRP on it. But there's the free search. You can do it for yourself. So people are saying fingers crossed for the ski and snowboard. Yeah, I'm going to give them away towards the end of the show today. Thoughts on a used Macan. Now, you're not saying which Macan it is. I think that the Macan is a great product. I am not a fan of the Macan for a family. I think it is the Cayenne is a better product. I have a Cayenne. Hey, I'll show you. Tell you what, I'll show you a picture of it. There it is. There's my car. And yeah, it's a better family vehicle. That Macan is small. It's really best if you have, you know, you're single, have a couple, or empty nesters. For kids, if they're in car seats at all, I think it's too small. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with it used. Hold their value, great resale value. Tell me which one you're thinking of getting. Another question, do you think the new Supra is really a Toyota? No, it's not. It's clearly not a pure Toyota. It's a co-production with BMW. But you know what? BMW knows how to make some damn good cars, and so does Toyota. And you think making them together is, you know, well, let's wait till we drive it. What's your take on purchasing a used BMW i3? Are they as prone to issues as their regular lineup? Well, you have less mechanical issues because of an electric car. So what I would suggest you do, I don't know the ins and outs. I don't follow used i3 reliability. What I suggest you do is you go onto an online chat room, and there's a chat room for every vehicle you can imagine. There's probably already a new chat room for the Supra. So go and type in BMW chat room or BMW i3 chat room. You'll get in there and you'll see what other owners are experiencing with their vehicles. I suspect if there are any issues with it, it's probably going to be like minor hardware things that BMW, in my opinion, has been known for. But that's my best advice to you because I don't follow that car that closely. Opinions on the Acura RLX versus the Infiniti Q70. Well, I got to tell you, there was an article that came out recently with the least sold vehicles here in the Canadian market, and you picked 2 of them. Now, the RLX is a a real technological marvel. It's a car, when you drive it, you're like, oh my God, there is so much technology in this car, especially when you get the hybrid version with the all-wheel drive system, not the pause system, the other one. Basically, you've got the reverse situation of the NSX. With the front wheels being driven by the electric motor, sorry, the gasoline engine, and the rears by the electric. So it's a very highly technical car. I would take it over the Q70 any day of the week, in my opinion. I guarantee you, if you go to Car Cost Canada and you do a search for an RLX, there will be huge incentives on that car. They just don't sell. They sell literally maybe 1 or 2 a month across the country. That could be an exaggeration, but it's not that far off. And guarantee you, very low production cars that are not selling, you're going to get a good deal on. Next question. Hey, Zach, if you had to choose between an Outlander plug-in or an all-new RAV4 hybrid in terms of overall efficiency, I traveled about 60 kilometers a day, mostly highway driving. Well, if you're just looking at straight efficiency, having the ability to go, I'm trying to remember what the Outlander is again. Is it 40 kilometers of pure electric range? So if you're doing the majority of your drive using pure electric, or having a combination of electric and battery, sorry, and gasoline powered, you are going to average better fuel economy. That being said, you have to look at the difference in the price. Now, the Outlander is more expensive. The RAV4 is available now for the hybrid models on less expensive models. So the problem is Outlander PHEV, you've got to go over $40,000 to start at one. You can get a nicely equipped RAV4 hybrid for under $40,000. So by the time you add in the cost of fuel over 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long you're going to keep it, the RAV4 might actually come out on top. So it's a little bit of a spreadsheet. You have to drill in and see which one you want and figure out how far you drive and average out your fuel cost and see what works best for you. Should Cadillac have added a 3.3-liter twin turbo to the XT6? Well, you know what's interesting? I always get them mixed up. Which is the new one? Is it the Aviator or the Nautilus? Anyway, the new 3-row Lincoln, the one that Mike drove and recently did a review on it, it is beautiful. Or the one he showed from the LA show. It is absolutely gorgeous. And the Lincoln display at the Detroit show was here, and the Cadillac display was right next to it. And when you look at the XT6, it just looks like an elongated version kind of the XT5. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a nice looking vehicle. But when you see the Lincoln, it's like, wow, that Lincoln has got to be one of the best looking new SUVs that I've seen in a long time. Very Range Rover looking, beautifully designed. And so they made the XT6 longer. It's only heavier by a couple of 100 pounds. But I believe that the 3.6 liter naturally aspirated engine in the XT5 is just a little bit underpowered. So with that product, I will have to wait till we drive it, but it feels like it. So here's the great thing about going to things like the North American International Auto Show. I'm walking by the Cadillac display, and there's all these people standing around the new XT6. And I'm standing there taking some videos and pictures. And I can see guys got a Cadillac badge on. So I asked him a question. I don't even know what it was. And then I start talking to him. Super nice guy. And then I said, oh, what do you do? I am the chief engineer of this car. So I'm standing there talking to the chief engineer of the XT6. I'm saying, how did I stop and talk to the right guy? Did I pick the right guy to talk to? So he's talking to me about the product, and basically they said, yeah, they just elongated it. It's the same engine. I didn't say it was a disappointment to him, but when you look at that Lincoln that's going to have, what is it, 450 horsepower, 600 or something like that with the hybrid system, that's amazing technology. So yeah, they're going to have to, I think, update that pretty quickly if they want to compete with the new Lincoln. When and where will the Mark 8 VW Golf European launch take place, and when do they start selling it in North America? It's funny, I texted Thomas Tetzlaff from Volkswagen Canada today. He is over in Germany, or is on his way to Germany for meetings this week in Wolfsburg. There is nothing imminent at the Geneva show, because I would have heard about that. I'm guessing it's going to be at the Frankfurt Motor Show in September. So the Paris and the Frankfurt shows alternate. This is the big, obviously, German motor show. It happens every 2 years in Frankfurt. It's going to take place in September. If I was a gambling man, that's where I lay my money, that's where I put my chips down, is on the Frankfurt show for the new Golf. When I find out, I'll let you know. Stefan says, oh, why are you doing this during the football championship game? You know what? We have Rams fans here in our house with my kids, and we watched the game. It was very exciting. I understand that the football game is on, but I do kind of keep to a schedule as well. And I won't be here next week because I am going to be in Spain driving the new 911. So I apologize for that. But you know what? Watch the game. Just come back and watch this when I put it up afterwards. Hey, Zach, have you driven the Kia K3 GT sedan and hatch recently? No. I'm not sure what you mean by the K3. Is that a platform code name? So I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by that. Hey, Zach, braved the snow to check out the Montreal Auto Show. Good for you. And it was amazing. There was a room of just EV charger sales companies and even one EV charging Tempo. Great show this year. You know what? Good for you, Josh, because I'll tell you something. The car industry is really thinking this whole auto show idea and wondering if it's worth the money. These displays they put up are very expensive. They have to ship them across the country. They have to pay huge fees to take part in the show and rent the hall space. It costs a mammoth amount of money to pay often unionized people to load in and load out these displays, and it takes sometimes quite a bit of time. And they put the cars in there. It's a huge expense for car companies to do an auto show season. A lot of them are rethinking whether there's much of an investment there. So I encourage you, when the auto show is in your town, whether it's Toronto, Montreal, here in Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, or wherever it is in North America, go and attend. It's also the perfect opportunity to get in one car and out of another one, in and out, to see actually how you fit and how you feel in them, because that's the best way to find out which cars you're liking. So yeah, good for you. Hey, Zach, have you ever driven the Lexus GS350? I didn't see a review for it on your channel. Have you driven that? Yes, it should be a review on there. It's like in quite a few years. When the model was just done a few years ago, it was in Carmel, Monterey. I think we actually did some track time at Laguna Seca. So have a look on the channel. It should be there. It's another one of those cars that doesn't sell because mid-size to large luxury car sales are just tanking. So it's falling into that as well, unfortunately. It is available too as a hybrid. Aside from the rear taillights, what else changed between the 18 and 19 Porsche Macan? Okay, not a lot, but some significant things. So they put the light bar across the back of the Macan that you saw on the latest Cayenne. They changed the headlamps to look like the latest Cayenne with the LED sort of matrix lighting system. Not the matrix lighting, but it's the 4-point LED lights in there. They opened up the mouth of the car with the grille to make it look a little bit beefier. But the biggest change, and I think the one that's the most notable for people, is that they put the large 12.3-inch infotainment system in that you see in Cayenne. They didn't change the rest of the console like you saw with other cars, but that's a mid-cycle refresh for that car. But those are the main things. I think also they updated wheel sizes, something like that. But for some people, that new infotainment system is going to be worth it. Are you going to be at the press day for the Toronto Auto Show? I don't have any plans for it yet, but things might change. I'll see. Josh goes on to say, sadly, almost zero diesel offerings at the show. Industry is really changing. Yeah, you know what? If Volkswagen hadn't screwed it up with the Dieselgate thing in 2015, I think that there would still be a lot of diesels available, but they really screwed it for everybody. Somebody actually emailed me today asking about a BMW X5, whether they should get one, and I'm like, well, if you want one, you better act if you want a new one, because there are going to be none left. The only premium brand that's offering diesel now is Land Rover and Range Rover, and that's a great engine, by the way. Naki says, Mazda puts out great cars. Why do you think people don't buy them? The problem they have is that they're, a lot of their cars are just that. They're cars. This new CX-5 is going to sell much, much better. They updated it for 19 with the 2.5 liter turbo. They got rid of the base 2-liter engine. They just have the 2.5 or the 2.5 liter turbo. The CX-3 and the CX-5 and the CX-9 are selling well. So just like everybody else in the industry, utilities are what moves the needle. The fact that they have a new Mazda 3 with all-wheel drive coming this year is going to be, heartening for people that still want to drive a car. But yeah, coming out with a new Mazda 6, it didn't make any difference at all in terms of sales, because that's not what people are buying. They're buying utility vehicles. And if you strip away their car sales, their units overall are up, but the car sales are dragging them down because people aren't buying them. Hey, Zach, I feel that most companies been stacking up cars with features of little or no value over the past few years just for the sake of it and have lacked innovation. What are your thoughts? I would disagree with that. I mean, the competition in this industry is absolutely fierce. If a brand comes out with some technology, everybody else has to get on board and offer it, or else they start to feel the pinch of it. I did bring this up. I mentioned earlier that I was a guest of Toyota for the North American International Auto Show. We had that round table, and I said, is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto becoming a why buy, like why people are buying cars? They say they're seeing it more. It might be a function of Toyota's demographics, probably older than some other brands. Like, for example, we just talked about Mazda, definitely skews younger. Toyota skews a little bit older, and for those people, they probably don't notice. And they made a point and said, it hasn't affected our sales. They have had record sales the last few years. They set a new sales record again this past year. So it's not showing up in sales numbers yet. But that is something that they're watching, and will be adding Android Auto when they get a chance to do it. But then you see other advancements. Speaking of Toyota, was the first brand to make their advanced safety system standard, Toyota Safety Sense and now Toyota Safety Sense P, on almost all of their cars. 95% of their cars have that technology. So that's a race in innovation that has definitely been welcomed. So I'm not sure which features you're talking about, but as someone who drives new cars every single week, I enjoy a lot of the features. I like the wireless charging pad. I like having the connectivity in the car. I like a lot of those features. I like all the cameras. I like the backup sensors. I like all that stuff. It's making cars better, in my opinion. I can see how Hyundai Kia brand is getting bigger and bigger now. How do you think about their vision in the U.S. market as a professional car person? Hyundai and Kia, this is an interesting thing, and I didn't know this until, it was about 3 or 4 months ago. I was reading some news articles. I read a lot of news articles and industry articles, and worldwide, Hyundai and Kia are actually suffering in terms of sales. They're not getting their home market right. They're not getting a lot of the Japanese market right, and they're the Chinese market right, and they're suffering because of that. So they have to bring up cars that appeal to different segments of the auto industry, and they're following behind, and they have a major offensive over the next couple of years to try and rectify that. So they're having the wrong portfolio mix for the marketplace, and you can see that, like, for example, in brands that don't have a lot of SUVs in North America are falling behind, and companies that have invested in SUVs are doing record sales. A perfect example is FCA. I was there for the introduction of the Ram Heavy Duty with 1,000 pounds of torque. Can you believe that? So I was standing there, and the president of FCA Canada was doing the presentation at the Detroit show, because not only is he the president of FCA Canada, he's the head of sales in the United States. His name is Reed Bigland, a Canadian guy. And he was talking about the numbers in the States. And FCA, opposite to what's happened here in Canada, has had a fantastic years in the United States. And one of the reasons, Jeep brand. They have so many. They have Renegade, Compass. They have Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, and now they're going to have even more in their portfolio. So brands that have SUVs are doing well, and that's the case I'm hearing from Hyundai and Kia. Is their portfolio mix, especially for China, isn't good. So we'll have to wait and see. I love this question. This is from N2000. Rolex Explorer 1 versus Submariner no date. Thoughts? So yeah, for those that aren't aware, I have another YouTube channel. It's called Watch This. I will put the link in the description below after the show is done here. And I have a bunch of videos that are scheduled to come out over the next 2 weeks. And I love watches. And a lot of people are into watches and are into cars and vice versa. So an Explorer 1 or a Submariner no date. I would take an Explorer, sorry, I would take a Submariner no date. That's a classic. You will never go wrong. If you're into buying a luxury watch, you need two watches to get you through life. One is a Rolex Submariner, and the other one is a Omega Speedmaster Professional. Man on the Moon watch. So there you go. But go over to that one. It's called Watch This, and you can watch videos on watches, if that floats your boat. Oh, here's a good question. What did you think of the city of Detroit in the North American International Auto Show overall? Try and say North American International Auto Show overall quickly. That's not easy. Okay, two things. There's the show, and then there's the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit is making a comeback. There is no question that the city has turned a corner. Whenever there's a major failure, there's an opportunity to rise from the ashes and start new. So when Detroit went into bankruptcy, when the the auto industry was on its knees, Detroit, when I started going to the North American International Auto Show in the early 90s, you didn't stray outside of Cobo Hall. You went right to your hotel and you never went outside. Now you can walk around downtown. There's great restaurants there. There's definitely a revitalization, and a lot of companies have seen an opportunity to get into Detroit, establish a base with cheap rent, cheap taxes, and an available workforce. So Detroit on its own is starting to come back, and you see those green sprouts coming up in the economy. Now, the show is exactly 180 degrees the opposite. No BMW, no Audi, no Mercedes, no Mini, no Land Rover, no Jaguar, no Bentley, no Rolls Royce, no Lamborghini, no, I mean, it just went on and on and on. There was more brands not there than were there, and they tried to, fill the hole out and make it look full, but they've moved the show for 2020 until June, so close to summer. It's going to be interesting to watch that. But that's why I was saying auto shows are going through a tough time right now. Some brands are just saying they're not taking part. For example, Mercedes-Benz in the Canadian auto show circuit, they're doing Montreal and Toronto. That's it. They're not going to be in the other markets. They're not paying to do that, which I think is a bit foolish myself, but there you go. So let's wait and see what happens with the North American International Auto Show. The other shows, New York is going to have more importance, and so will LA. Challenger GT or base Stinger GT all-wheel drive. I don't know what you want to use it for. If you just want it for an everyday car for comfort and ease of use, I think the Stinger. I was rewatching your video from PEI when you tested out the new Camry, and I was curious if you had any new info regarding the upcoming TRD version. Nothing yet. Yeah, they're going to TRD everything, just the way BMW sticks M on everything, just the way that AMG from Mercedes is on everything. So there's TRD. You're going to see, what are some of the other brands with their numbers and letters? They're all going to have these special sport designations. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head, but you're going to see it more and more and more. I'll let you know when I find out. Do you think that Cadillac and Lincoln could retain sales by creating an estate version of their flagship models? Maybe an electric option. I would love to see more estates. Now, if you listened last week, I think I mentioned it, there was an article that came out in the United States. Wealthy people are moving away from SUVs and turning to station wagons. Now, there's some beautiful options out there. A Mercedes E-Class station wagon. You get that gorgeous Volvo, the V90 or the Cross Country. The R design is the one I like in that cobalt blue with those big-ass wheels. That's a cool-looking station wagon. Now, I hope we're going to see some kind of resurgence and more models. For example, the Mercedes C-Class wagon is sold in Canada. It isn't in the United States, and I think that's an opportunity for them. They have that beautiful Buick that's sold as a station wagon. We don't get it in Canada. But I would hope that they might see an opportunity. And here's what the thinking is. SUVs now are the everyday person's car, right? And everybody's got an SUV. But if you want something different, and people with money often like to have something different, Tesla, they might try to get a station wagon. And I think that's a good trend, because as somebody who owned a 5 Series BMW years ago, station wagon, I absolutely loved it. My wife hated it. I don't get why women hate station wagons. They drive better. They handle better, they look cooler, they have almost the same amount of utility. You can get them in all-wheel drive and you can beat the bag off of them. That's the way, I love them, I love it. That Volvo V90, is it R Design or R? See, there's another one. I can't. They've got R. They use R for everything. Is it R Line or R Design? I can't remember. The thing with my job is you got to know a little bit about everything, but I forget a lot of stuff too. Is Ford coming out with a new Bronco, or is it an urban myth? I had a nice chat with the product planner for Ford of Canada, and yes, the Bronco's coming. It's going to be coming or unveiled, hopefully sometime this year. Peter says, Supra equals total flop. There it is. Well, Akio Toyota doesn't believe that, and I don't think it will be a flop. I think that, you know, with a limited production run, they don't need to, they're not going to sell a lot of these. They know they're not going to sell a lot of them. But I mean, if you're somebody that wants to have a fun, cool looking coupe, and you want to have, you know, 335 horsepower, and you know, you're not 22, maybe you're 57, maybe you're, you know, 52, people who can afford to have a toy, because here's the reality, this is a toy. It's not really going to be someone's everyday car. It's going to be a second or a third car, and somebody that can afford that car, they don't care. And I don't think it's going to be a flop. I think they're going to sell exactly what they think they're going to sell. Can you, this is from Parth, can you recommend a men's watch for a BMW M enthusiast? I wouldn't suggest you buy one of their boutique watches. Like you go to the dealer and they have the M Motorsport watches. They're not really particularly high-end watches. If you like Parth, send me a note. Go to my my website, motormouth.ca, and send me an email, and I'll get back to you. I can give you some suggestions. I need to know kind of what the price range of what you're looking for. So there's lots of beautiful watches out there. But I wouldn't go and buy one of those boutique watches from the dealer. I think they're way overpriced and they're not particularly good. Bruno says, hey, Zach, what do you think of the 1994 Lexus LS400 with 130,000 kilometers on it? I say that's a baller car. You know, back in those days, it was really, they were going after Mercedes-Benz hard. And they were nice cars to drive. They didn't handle. They were just okay to handle. But man, built like a tank and will run forever. Let me just have, oh geez, I got my thing bumped along here. I got to go back to where I was. I apologize. Look into ball watches. Not sold on that. Somebody's saying that the FT1 concept was way nicer looking. That was the concept that led up to this car. Actually, it looks a lot like it. I know it's hard to do concepts to be exactly the same, but yeah, that was a cool looking car, and I was at Detroit when they unveiled that a few years ago. But yeah, you know what? Wait till you see the Supra in person. It's a pretty cool looking car. Hey, Zach, looking at an Audi RS3, is there anything else that competes with it for a daily? No, not at 400 horsepower. Buy it. You will love it. Great car. Is the 370Z or Z the last manual naturally aspirated V6 two-door Japanese sports car? Probably is. You probably nailed it. You know what? I did a little video, or we did a video for Driving TV, the TV show that I host. That's a hell of a car. I mean, the base model 370 from Nissan, under $30,000. It's old on the inside, but you know what? And I was at the airport in Toronto flying back from Detroit, and a guy recognized me, and we were talking. He's got the Nismo version of that car, and he thinks it's great. It's great value. That's, I think, the great thing about it. I drive a 2015 Audi A5 in Ottawa and personally love it. Even handles great in the harsh winters. And the RS3 is my dream car for sure. Well, get it and put some good winters on it and you'll be set to go. The Drive Guide, Max here, picked up the UX 250H today. Review next week. Well, there you go. So Max is a contributor. He did the Volvo video recently. So Max Landy, thanks for tuning in. And there you go. So he's got the UX 250H and his video will be next week. So, and you know what? Let's hear it for Max, everybody. You know, some people were not kind to Max in the beginning when he was on the channel. He's really put the work in. He's doing great stuff. He's definitely improved his presentation and all of his skills on all levels. So Max, you're doing good stuff, and thank you for contributing to the channel. And yeah, we look forward to that review. Bavin says, hi Zach, I see there are 3 to 4 trims of RAV4 hybrid with price starting at 32 to 42. Which one do you recommend? It comes up to what your price budget is and which features that you need to have. The good thing is, the price starts at $32,000. I mean, that's great that Toyota doesn't, see, that's one of the problems you used to get with hybrids. Hybrids were only sold often with one or two trims, and they were the most expensive. The fact that they've now dropped the price down, $32,000 for a compact SUV is right in the wheelhouse for a gasoline version. And the fact that you can get a hybrid and save money, and it's a nice driving car too, is fantastic. So yeah, pick the one that has the features that you need, because there's really nothing more than that. It's just features. Your thoughts on a Genesis G70? It's fully loaded with luxury package. So the G70 won the North American Car of the Year. The G70 won, what was the other car? The Kona from Hyundai won the Utility of the Year, and the Ram 1500 pickup truck won Truck of the Year at the North American International Auto Show. And I agree with all three. So what you should do, my friend, is go and get into behind the wheel of a G70, and you will absolutely love it. That 3.3 liter turbo is magnifique, fantastic. What do you think about the Golf Sport Wagon? It's a great vehicle. Actually, in the article that I read about wagons becoming more popular, the Sport Wagon was actually a highlight, and they showcased that vehicle because it's one of the few wagons that's been around. And the All-Track is more expensive, but I think that it's a great product. I absolutely have no problem recommending it. Hey, Zach, any word on FCA will launch a new redesigned 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee? We're all waiting. I didn't hear anything specific. Mazda CX-5 or XC40? I'm split between the two. Okay, if you're looking at space on the inside, the Volvo is one of the best designs I've seen, period, when it comes to a compact or smaller utility. It's just a really nicely packaged car for space on the inside, for people and for cargo. Now, I think when it comes to power, that's about a tie there, because it does have a turbocharged four-cylinder engine, and so does the CX-5 if you're getting the GT or the premium package. Now, when you get into the other features, I think the head unit of the Volvo I find quirky. Some people love it. Max, for example, he did a review and he likes the head units in the Volvos. I'm not particularly sold on them. That being said, this CX-5 that we drove, and the video just went up exactly a week ago, go and watch it. I found the head unit was so slow. And I'm not sure if there was something wrong with that particular model, but it seemed like to take forever. Here's what you need to do, and I'm not just pawning you off. Please go and drive them both. Pick the one that you like. There is no right or wrong answer. You are now, you're getting down and whittling down to what works for you. Here's a perfect time to plug Car Cost Canada, because that might be the tiebreaker. So go to Car Cost Canada. The first search is free. You're going to find out what the dealer paid for the car, any rebates that are in place, any hidden rebates, and they're often hidden rebates, also discounted interest rates, and sometimes you get in there, first-time buyer credits, you get, student credits. There's all kinds of different hidden things that you're not aware of that will all pop up on Car Cost Canada. So do the search, but please drive them both and pick the one you like. There is no wrong answer with those two. Hey, Zach, you're planning on driving the Kia Niro EV. Do you know when pricing will be out? And it'll be cheaper than the Kona Electric. I don't think it's going to be any cheaper. I think the pricing is going to be very, very close. This is the problem. You've got, okay, we'll pick because we do know the price of the Kona Electric. It's around $45,000 for the base model. The Kona is really a front-wheel drive, subcompact hatchback is basically what you're getting. And it's a pure electric car. And that's expensive. You get the top of range one, it's 52 grand. Now it falls almost exactly in line with the Chevy Bolt. The Bolt is the same. It's really just a front-wheel drive car. The Bolt looks like a Honda Fit, but it's pure electric. Both of them get a similar range, and both of them are similarly priced. But I just think that, and this is back to the conversation we had with Toyota at the North American International Auto Show. I think a lot of people are overbuying in this situation. You're going to spend $45,000 on a pure EV. You would be better to go and get a fully loaded Toyota RAV4 and start saving money day one, and a known resale value will run for years. And if you ever want to trade it in 3 or 4 years when electric cars maybe become more affordable, you can do that. That's what I would do. Other than Rogue, what other car does Nissan sell well? Who is buying the Altima Sentra? Their SUV trucks are dated. Are people walking into dealerships and getting crazy deals? It has been rumored, and I've heard this, that Nissan is definitely aggressive with the rebates and incentives. Car Cost Canada, a great way to find out. They're pushing into utilities. You think about their lineup. Armada at the top, which is a great truck. If you want a body-on-frame truck, that's a good one to choose. Then you've got Pathfinder sells incredibly well. You've got Rogue is their best seller. The Qashqai is doing okay. And the new Kicks, actually, the Kicks is a fun little vehicle to drive. So they have a lot of, oh, and Murano is in there as well. So that's the thing. Brands that have SUVs covered do well. Brands that don't have a lot of SUVs are not selling particularly well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with this new Altima with all-wheel drive. It is not in the same league as Camry and Accord. It just isn't in terms of sales. But they have a lot covered with their SUVs, and they are very aggressive in terms of pricing and discounts. The next question, when pricing manufacturers' cars on websites, why is an APR interest rate still calculated even though it's 0% financing? It's probably something to do with legal. It's something that has to be done in order for them to be compliant. Hey Zach, from Dublin, Ireland. Well, welcome. Is the right-hand drive import industry still big in Canada? It is big on the West Coast because these cars are coming from Japan. If you've never been to the West Coast of Canada, you will find some really funky ex-Japanese cars that have come here to our shores. Like the Mitsubishi Delica is one that people use for camping, and there have been importers that bring the cars over. The thing is, it's a double whammy, because in Canada you can bring a car without modifications at all after it's 15 years old. In the United States, it's 25 years old. And then the opposite is true in Japan. Vehicles that get to a certain age, the road tax becomes so expensive, it's not worth keeping, because Japan is trying to get their population to buy newer, more efficient and cleaner vehicles. So as a car gets older, you know, a family's looked after it, and boy, do they look after their cars. They're mint. They sell them and they go to auction. People buy them, they ship them here to Canada, and on the West Coast you see quite a few of them. Often you'll see a right-hand drive Toyota Land Cruiser diesel, cool truck, right? That's what you see. So yes, it's still happening, and people are still bringing them in. It hasn't shifted to the east yet. Waiting for the Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 review. What a machine. I was standing there at the presentation. They had the volume. It must have been 150 decibels. It was just, I was like this. Honestly, I had to plug my ears. And there was somebody there that I was having dinner with later that night who was like in his 20s, and he said, I thought I felt old because I thought it was too loud. But boom, 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 they brought it out and they dropped it like it was coming out of it. It was so cool. Great presentation, but you're right. 700 horsepower, can't wait to drive that. Jody says, hey, Zach. What do you think of an S5 Sportback for a family with one child? It's going to be a bit tight in the back seat. I had an A7, which is a bigger car, is the kid in a little booster seat, or is the kid in still a child seat? Because that's going to be the differentiator. The back hatch is going to be big enough if you're going to put a stroller in the back. That's not a worry at all. I urge you to go to an Audi dealer and take your child with you, and take the seat if the child needs to be in a seat, and put it in the back of the car and try it for yourself. If it works, have at it. If not, look for something else. Dale says the XT6 looks better than Lincoln. I don't think so. The XT6, I even said in my video, I like the direction Cadillac's going. I like what they're doing. But I think that the new Lincoln is absolutely a home run. Blue Chinchilla Eating Dorito. Nice name. Hey, Zach, what are your thoughts on Open Road's new portfolio car subscription program? Is this something you see as being a huge success? So for those that are not aware, there's a dealer group here on the West Coast that you pay a fee and you can flip in and out of the different cars. You're not tied into just one car for a long period of time. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but these are prestige brand cars. So you say you have a Porsche, then you get into an Audi, then you get into something else. I don't think it's going to take off. I really don't. Because the thing is that people that own cars like that, there's pride in ownership and they want to have it. There could be a segment of the population, mostly a lot of the Chinese immigrant population that's come here to Canada that likes the showbiz. They might go for it, but I don't think it's going to be a big hit. That's my personal opinion. Which Japanese company do you think makes the best trucks, Nissan or Toyota? Toyota. The Nissan trucks are very capable, but I think that if I was going to go and buy one, I would go and buy a Tundra. Even though it's terrible on gas, I think it just comes down to resale value. And Nissan has had a hard time with their new Titan moving it. They are just not moving in the numbers they had hoped. Excuse me, got a tickle here. Any major difference between the CLA and the A-Class sedan? The CLA and the A-Class sedan. You're going to run on the same platform. They call it their small vehicle family, so they're all running on the same gear. So I don't think there's going to be. I haven't driven either of them yet, and I will get into them, but I don't think there's going to be much in it. Stefan says, I'm watching the football game at the same time. You don't have to apologize. That's good. Thanks. Who do you want to win? Is it going to be New England again this time? I don't know. I love the Tacoma, but I couldn't decide between that and a Titan. Well, one is a mid-size truck and one is a full-size truck. FCA said the Dodge Challenger will have a hybrid system. I didn't hear that. And if it is, you know what it is? It's the mild hybrid, the 48-volt mild hybrid system that they have in the Ram 1500. It's not a hybrid. It's basically what it does is the 48-volt battery gives you instant launch torque for a fraction of a second. That's all it is. So don't get sucked into thinking it's a pure hybrid, because it won't be. And so they have obviously licensed this 48-volt system. They're going to be putting it in more and more cars. It's already in a lot of the Audi, BMW, and Mercedes vehicles. Somebody says, I'm glad that BMW and Toyota work together to invest in the new Z4 Supra. Neither wants to invest in those levels by themselves for a shrinking piece of pie. Bingo, you hit the nail on the head. You're going to see more and more of this. Did you hear the announcement that came out of the Detroit show? Detroit and Ford now have an alliance to produce commercial vehicles together, some SUVs, and to work together sharing the cost of electrification and autonomous vehicles. The costs on this, absolutely astronomical. There's an article, by the way, another plug for the Facebook page. An article I put on the Motormouth Facebook page was about the amount of money that is projected to be spent by auto manufacturers over the next few years as they move towards electrification. It's $300 billion. Think about that. $300 billion. Okay, this is an enormous amount of money, and a lot of these companies are not going to be able to absorb that cost on their own. They are going to have to team up to come together with alliances in order to share the cost. So the fact that BMW and Toyota have come together to provide a car at all, hey, listen, if Toyota didn't have BMW in their back pocket to provide the engine, the drivetrain for this car, it wouldn't exist. So would you rather have a Toyota Supra or no Toyota Supra? That's what you got to think to yourself. Hey, Zach, thanks again for keeping this channel going. Was I going anywhere? Are you going to review the new G90? Yeah, they announced the new G90, the new, no, I guess it's the Genesis G90. Nobody buys this car. They don't. It's too big. People are not buying big land yachts. They're not. You look at the 7 Series sales. I guess the one outlier in that is S-Class, because S-Class is still S-Class is still S-Class. Yeah, if I get my hands on it, I'll do a review. But people aren't buying them. I'm just sort of reading ahead here because I have to get through some of them. Hey, Zach, I've been considering a Lexus IS300 all-wheel drive and the new BMW 3 Series wagon. Which is better of the two? Is that the, I think that the IS is bulletproof. It's going to run forever. It's a car that has been around a while. It's long in the tooth. It needs to be refreshed. It needs to be updated. But if you just want to buy it and drive it and enjoy it and keep it for a long period of time, for sure. If you want to have a more dynamic driving experience and drive, in my opinion, a cooler car. It's funny, I was walking the dog with my wife today and somebody drove by with a 3 Series station wagon and I said, that's a good looking car. And for me, it comes down to that. I think wagons are cool. I'd get the BMW. Hey, Zach. Would you say the new Audi Q3 is worth waiting for? Is something currently available like the XC40 or the X1 better? I think it's worth waiting for. I really do. I think that the new Q3 is so much better than the previous version. The previous version ran on the old Touareg platform. It had the old Touareg 200 horsepower engine. It had the old 6-speed automatic, Tiptronic, no dual clutch, and it had the old interior. It's an old product. The current one that's for sale now, it's an old car. So the new one is running on all the latest stuff. So yeah, it is worth waiting for. And I think you're in the right wheelhouse. I think that is going to be worth consideration. Another one you should consider is the XT4 from CADillac. It might surprise you. It's a nice car. Hey, Zach, what do you think is the brand with the oldest buyers? I don't know specifically all the different breakouts, but you can kind of guess brands that skew a little bit older. I would suggest Lexus owners are typically a little bit older. You have youthful brands like Mazda definitely skews younger, Kia, a lot of brands that are value proposition definitely skew younger because younger people obviously don't have as much money. And older brands are, you know, like they've had these battles for many years. CADillac has been trying to get their buyers to become younger, and they've succeeded in some ways, but in other ways they lost buyers, right? So they win some here and they lose some there. So just brands that you would suspect are older buyers probably are. Here's a question for you. Shout it out to the screen. I'm going to do the giveaway in a second here. What do you think the average age of a new car buyer is? I mean, in the Canadian market, I live in Canada. What do you think the average age of a new car buyer is, say, in Canada? Any guesses? Is it 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75? Any guesses? The average age of a new car buyer is close to 50 years old. 47 years old is the average age of a new car buyer. So when you see all of these new cars targeted at youth millennials, and they're not buying them. It's people who are, you know, mid-managers in corporate jobs in their mid to late 40s. That's the average age. So there you go. Okay, it's time to give these skis away. I want to say, before I do, I'll just do it. So there's the ski and the board behind me. I'll just show you quickly. They're from Toyo Tires Canada. They're made by Alain. And I'm going to give those away. People were entering, so those are really nice, and I'm going to do it now. All right. So what I did is I made 2 email folders. When you entered, you had to enter and say, I want skis or I want a Toyo Tires board. So, you know what? It's almost exactly split down the middle 50-50. And both, there was about 100 entries for both, for the skis and for the board. So I have the skis one. Let me just get into the skis folder now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of noodle through here. I won't look. I don't know who it is. And I'm going to stop. And when I stop, it is Bhavin Desai. Bhavin Desai of area code 905. So Bhavin, you win the skis. All right. You're the skis winner. And we'll go into the board folder now. And I'll do the same thing. I'll look. I won't look. I'm going to go through all of the different emails, and then we'll stop on one and see where it is. Brian Prentice, 778. I think that's a Vancouver number. So Brian Prentice, you are the winner of the snowboard. So what I'm going to do is I am going to send these emails back and let them know that we have given away the board and the skis. Thanks to everybody that entered. It was a lot of fun to do that. I'm gonna go to Toyo next year. I'm gonna see if I can give away a set of winter tires. That would be good, right? So next fall, give away a set of winter tires. I think that would be a great contest. I think they'd be down for that, and we could get lots and lots of entries. So thanks to everybody that came on board. Once again, I will not be here next Sunday. I'll be traveling back from Spain, driving the new 911, so watch for that video. Later this week, there's going to be a GMC Sierra video. There's also going to be 2 Cayenne videos, the Turbo and the Turbo S. I'm going to be driving those in Quebec, and a bunch of other stuff. So keep an eye out, keep watching the channel. Max is going to be sending over his new Lexus video next week, and a big shout out and thanks to him, and of course to Mike Gurr in Toronto, who's a contributor to the channel as well. And if you want to go to my other YouTube channel, which is called Watch This, search that on YouTube. After this show's done, I'll put the link below. Thanks for watching, and congratulations to our winners, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.